All right, here we go. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Safe Cycling 101 webinar with Cycle Toronto. So let us get started.
So I'm Rick and Noma's here as well. I'll just start off.
Actually, sorry, Rick. Let me continue on my blurb more.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So basically, why are we all here? So let me quickly explain what is the Sparking program, and then from there we'll kind of move on to talk to Rick and Noma talking about Cycle Toronto and the reason why we're all here. But first, what is Spark Commute? So basically, Spark Commute program is an initiative in Ontario where we offer commuting solutions to workplaces to empower possibilities for how Ontarians commute. And so, as this kind of purpose-driven initiative, we educate and we improve access to all sorts of sustainable commuting options, from carpooling, public transit, micromobility, such as cycling, and all the efforts that we do align with kind of these broader societal goals of trying to improve multimodal transportation, improving every commuter's quality of life and the way that we access and go about and how we move around, and really to reduce negative health and environmental impacts such as air pollution. And so kind of the vision that we do with all of our work is to kind of create an efficient, equitable, and sustainable transportation system by empowering people with safe, convenient, and environmentally friendly commuting choices that reduce our reliance on single occupancy vehicle, so basically driving alone. And so if you don't know where we operate, this is kind of the list of all the regions in Ontario. So here in Toronto, we have York Region 2, Hamilton, Durham, Halton Region, London, Bruce County, and Greater Sudbury. And so before we start, I just have some quick poll questions, very, very simple. I just want to get a sense of the room to understand where everyone's coming from, what sort of things do you want to learn, and yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and launch with that. One fun thing too is that at the end of this webinar, so I'm going to collect all the names here. So basically, if you answer the poll questions this before and after kind of thing, I will add it to this prize wheel that we'll do, and then we'll pick one lucky winner from this roster here, who will win a $20 gift card prize. So I really encourage everyone to go and start answering these poll questions if you want to win a $20 gift card prize of your choice. And so I'll let this hang out for 30 more seconds. Yeah, 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. So thank you all so much for your responses. And so let's continue on. So without further ado, welcome Noma, welcome Rick from Cycle Toronto. Feel free to introduce yourself and take it away.
Okay. Where's the slides? I'll start.
Oh, I need to share again. Okay.
Yeah.
You share it and I'll do that.
Okay. So I'm Rick Wong, and that's Noma. We're both cycle educators for Cycle Toronto. I don't know if you know about Cycle Toronto. It's a organization does advocacy. We do group rides. I don't know how many of you may have been on the ride to work. We had about 300 cyclists at Nathan Phillips Square yesterday. So we do group rides, and the other part of Cycle Toronto is doing education workshops. The goal of Cycle Toronto is to try to make Toronto a better cycling city for, it doesn't matter what kind of cyclist you are, but I think all of us who work there think that cycling makes a better world. So it's to how can we promote more people to cycle and make cycling safer within the city. I think it leads to a better city. It leads to a healthier population. There's a whole lot of reasons why cycling. So safe cycle. A lot of people don't want to cycle because they perceive it as being dangerous, or they've had collisions, or heard about people who've had collisions. So Safe Cycle 101 is one of the important workshops we do in order to try to improve that. So next slide. Yeah, so as I said, there's a lot of reasons to bike within the city. Your transportation choices can be 30% of your carbon footprint. Good for your wallet. A lot of people buy less expensive property out of the city thinking they'll save a lot of money on real estate, but driving a car can cost you $10,000 to $15,000 a year once you add in depreciation. And if you added that into a 25-year mortgage, you can see that's a fair bit of money that driving cars can cost you. A lot of people, drive their car and then have to pay for a gym membership. And if you're riding all the time, a lot of times you don't need the gym membership. Traffic in Toronto is increasingly. I read an article recently that I think it was in 2023 about a quarter of the roads in Toronto have construction going on. You're less affected with construction. You still are sometimes when you're cycling, but a lot of times it's easier to find alternate routes, and you don't have those big backups that you get into when there's construction you didn't know about. And it really helps you engage at a local level to your urban environment, seeing things, being more face-to-face with people rather than being locked inside of a little steel bubble. And when we asked students, why they like to cycle, a lot of them were like, I love to go fast, I love the feeling of wind in my hair. So it's actually an enjoyable activity. So that's good. So what are you hoping to learn? I think I've said this is a kind of an odd slide because the next slide you tell you what you're going to learn today. But in order to gauge what kind of audience we're looking at, understanding where people are at with their cycling. Usually with a larger group, we'll have everything from people that are well-experienced cyclists to some people that are, they're not even riding and they're just thinking about riding and they want to learn more about it. So we'll kind of assume that's what's up. I think in the Jesse, how's it in the chat? We have a lot of people that are already cycling, or a lot of people just thinking about it, or that. That's a good yes. Anyway, okay, we'll go on to the agenda. So the stuff we're going to talk about today is some of the things that keep you safe with your bike, and then getting ready to ride. We'll go into a little bit of the legal position of cycling on the road, and then how you can share road space with all the other road users out there. And route planning is often underrated, but I think route planning, especially in a busy city like Toronto, or I know this is going up to York, so even up in Markham or in areas north of the city, figuring out what route you're going to take can actually make the big difference between whether it's a scary ride or whether it's a really pleasant ride. So I think, if you're primarily moving around by automobile, you figure out the fastest ways to get from point A to B. And those may not necessarily be the best routes for cycling because all these other car drivers are using that as the fastest route. So you start to develop an alternate grid layout over top of the city and start cycling. Go to the next one. Yeah, so safety equipment. So we also do in our bike engagement stations, this is a picture of one of our cycle educators. We'll do safety checks. So if you hear that we're going to be at your local farmer market or whatever, and you want to bring your bike by, one of the cycle educators will take a look at it. If it's a minor adjustment, a lot of times it's something fairly minor. They'll do it on the spot, or if there's something bigger, they'll tell you about it. So, Noma, do you want to step in?
Yeah, sure. So the next one is we're talking about bicycle bell. So one of the safety equipment that is needed and also by law is mandatory to have on your bike is bicycle bell to be heard and just announce yourself, whether it's for the cars or also for pedestrians. They're not expensive. You can get them $5 to $50. There are organizations who sometimes give them away. I know the city does sometimes. And there are fines for not having it that we'll talk about in a bit. And that's the same case with lights. Lights are mandatory too. It's the white in the front and a red light in the back. These are, yeah, same. They're not too expensive. You can get them like $20 easily. But again, there are organizations that would give them away. We do that at Toronto in fall usually. And same, there's going to be a fine if you don't have them. But the right time for putting on your lights are half an hour before sunset, before it gets dark, and half an hour after the sunrise. Sorry, I did not switch the slide on this one. Okay, now this is a. Sorry, having technical issues. It's not responding to me. Okay, next one is helmets. For helmets, obviously, safety concerns. Again, it's a safety equipment. Better to have it and protect our heads and our brains. I have my helmet here. There's this rule of helmet fit, which is 2v1. First of all, helmets have different size, so it's important to get the size that is the range of the helmet size is a good fit for your head. But then when you put the helmets on, recommended safety advice is not to have your hair in a bun or anything, or do not have like any clips or a bobby pin or anything on your head when you put the helmet on, just in case anything happens. You don't want that to get into your head. So the rule 2v1 says, so when you put a helmet on, most of the helmets have this thingy in the back, nut, to tighten it. So you want it to be tight that it doesn't fall easily, but you don't want it to be too tight because it's headache for people. And when you say 2v1, 2 refers to the 2 finger that we want to have the distance between the gap between your eyebrows and the edge of the helmet. So this is a good spot to have it. You don't want it to be further back because that's not going to do the job. And also if it's forward, that will limit your vision. And the V refers to these straps. So you can adjust this. I don't know if you can see this. You can adjust this, and it's best to have this V shape, the letter V, on both sides of ears. And when you click it, you don't want it to be tight, too tight, so it's uncomfortable. You don't want to choke yourself. And you don't want it to be too loose that the helmet comes off. Recommended 1 finger. So 2v1, that's the one that you should be able to run 1 finger there. Between the strap and your neck. Into the next slide. Let's get ready for a ride. So the most important one when you're getting a bike or borrowing or getting on a bike anyways, is to have it the right fit. First thing you check is the frame, the size of the frame, if it's the right fit for your body. So as you can see in this photo, Claire is standing over the bike, so the bike is between her legs. And at this in this situation, the best size would be just like having a few inches between the top tube of the bike, which is the tube that is parallel to the ground. The distance between that and your body should be a few inches. So there's enough space. So if you suddenly get off your bike, and also it's comfortable to stand over your bike. So if you suddenly get off, you're not going to hurt yourself. And the next one is when you're sitting on your seat on the saddle. That's when you're moving and you're sitting on the saddle. You should be able to put your toes on the ground, but recommended is when you're stopping, just get off. But when you're moving, when you're pedaling, you don't want the seat to be too low, so your knees are like constantly like bending too much. That will be hurting your knees, and it also is not efficient. And the maximum, the highest you can go, recommended is not to have your seat too high that your legs are stretching and you're locking your knee. That's the same with elbows too. When you're riding, you should not be locking your elbows because that will really hurt the joints if you go on a pothole, there's a bump. So when you pedal and your foot is in the lowest position, you want it to not be completely locked and have a little slight bend. And there are different type of saddles that really matters. Like different bodies are more comfortable on different saddles. There are like female body when we talk about. You see the saddle, like the one at the bottom and the one in the middle. They have like that empty space in the middle, which is more comfortable for most female bodies. And next slide is, so ABC is a method we use. Maybe I just want to pause here and see if there's any questions about what we already talked about. If you want to put them in the chat, if not, we just move on. Give it a few seconds. All right. How far back should a seat be? Really, it comes back to what you're comfortable with and your body. My favorite way of doing it is just like have the seat in the middle and like in the middle of that that tube that is there, and just like straight parallel to the ground at the beginning, tighten it, go for a ride for 10 minutes and adjust it again, ride for another 10 minutes and adjust it again. It honestly just depends on your position on the bike, what type of bike and frame it is. So so that matters because you're gonna bend down or be like upright. That's like could be any of that. So it really depends. On more upright bikes, it doesn't really matter, and people prefer having comfy, thicker chairs or saddles. But again, if it's a road bike and type of body, how tall you are, just play with it, ride for 10 minutes, play with it again, and that will hopefully give you the perfect sweet spot for that saddle adjustment.
There's some people that recommend running a plumb bob off the front of your kneecap through the ball of your foot and the pedal spindle, the axle in the middle of the pedal, as being the optimal. But like Noma says, there's rules of thumb, but then there's also how comfortable does it make you feel. If you have the money and you want to ride a lot of times, you can get a professional bike fit, which will, somebody who's trained in that will actually go through and micro adjust everything on the bike for you. But it can cost you, I don't know, $100 to $200 for one of those. And a lot of times you can kind of figure it out by, go for a long ride and what made you uncomfortable, and then you make the adjustments yourself until you feel that it works. But that's kind of the rule of thumb for that.
Yeah, exactly. Just gonna start ABC too. So ABC test is basically ABC is a method that we use to just remember everything. Like when you're doing mechanic, it could be like you can use this method for just a full-on building a bike or full-on tune-up, or just a quick safety check for like 30 seconds when you're getting on your bike. So we do recommend to do the safety check when you, obviously after a while that, so let's say at the beginning of the season, you were not riding during the winter, definitely we need an ABC check and make sure the bike is safe to ride on. But I recommend that, like, even if you lock your bike for like 5 hours outside, you never know. Someone passed by and was just like standing beside your bike, talking to someone, and just like disengage the brake, and your brake is not working anymore. And they didn't necessarily do it on purpose, but they're just playing with that bike there. So it's important to just check before you get on your bike. So the ABC, let me go back. A is like air, so anything around the wheels basically, and tires. We check that we're gonna talk about. Brakes and bar are the B's, and crank and chain. We're talking about the whole drive train, the chain cranks, and like jockey wheels and the drillers and the cogs in the back. So it's a very quick check and in this slide, when we're talking about safety check, we're just talking about the quick, a few minutes safety check. So do you want to take over, Eric?
Yeah, sure. So as Noma said, a lot of times, like when you're doing safety checks in public, a lot of people have incorrect air pressure in their bike. You should take a look on the side wall of your tire and know what kind of tires you're using. Will always have printed on the side a range of air pressures. Higher air pressures, if you're want a faster rolling tire, a lot of times higher pressures will give you that. If you go too high, though, you could blow it off the rim. So that's always look at what your maximum tire pressure is. Lower pressures are generally more comfortable, and if you're not carrying heavy loads, go for lower pressures on that. But yeah, do check that. You should be doing that all the time. Also, when you're doing that, give the bike the wheel a spin and see if there's anything rubbing or if the tire is scraped within the frame. Next slide. There are two types of basic valves on most bikes. I mean, there's a couple other valves out there that are not commonly used, but most of them are either Schrader valves or Presta valves. Schrader valve is the valve which you can also, same one as on car tires. Presta valve is a narrower valve, so it works well for narrower rims and for higher pressures. When you buy a pump, please buy one with a gauge on it so that you can tell how much air you're putting into your bike. This is tires and tire pressure are one of the easiest safety upgrades you can do on your bike. Better quality tires only cost you a few bucks more, but can drastically improve your ride handling and the safety of your bike. Next slide. When we talk about the B's, we're talking about checking your brakes and checking your bars. When we're doing safety checks on bikes, quite often we'll see people with rim brakes, which you see on the left-hand side, with pads that are completely worn out. When they start making any kind of noise, for sure, get your brakes checked. But also, you can see the one on the left-hand side, you can see little grooves on the brake pads. Those are like, I always say that's kind of like when you have treads on your running shoes, and once your treads are gone, you start slipping all over the place. Well, it's the same thing with your brake pads. Once the treads are gone, those brake pads you should be replacing them. As I mentioned in the beginning, it can cost you $10,000 or $15,000 to be driving a car. So, if you're not driving your car and you're riding your bike, you got a lot of money to play with. Brake pads, $20, $30. Spend the money and get good brake pads. Same thing with disc brakes. Disc brakes are more common now. Check your disc brakes once in a while. There should be at least 1 millimeter of thickness or more on the brake pad, which is about the same size as 3 business cards stacked up. So you should have a little bit of pad on there. I've seen people driving with disc brake pads that are completely worn out, and actually the piston itself is starting to rub on the rotor to try to stop the bike. It's bad for your bike, and it's bad for stopping. Handlebars, we quite often see handlebars that are loose. The best way of checking that, you stand with your feet on both sides of the front and try to move the bars, both sides of the front wheel, lock between your knees, try to jiggle the bars and see if there's any movement. If there's any movement whatsoever, that's really unsafe and you should get that tightened up. Like I said, we see people riding around with loose handlebars all the time. That's one. And the last thing is checking your drivetrain. So on your drivetrain, the crank, the chain rings, and the pedal arm, all that should only move in the same plane as the bike. It shouldn't have any lateral movement. Any lateral movement is a sign. It's a dangerous sign. It'll cause bad shifting, chain coming off, increased wear on the ball bearings, which are going through the frame there. So checking your crank and checking your drivetrain is always a really good idea. Making sure you've got oil on your chain. So your chain should be lightly oiled and then wiping off the excess on an ongoing basis. It makes a safer bike. Next one.
You want to do this?
Yes. Do you want to do it or you want me?
Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, rights and responsibilities, we're just basically talking about like the law. So in Ontario, where is it not going to? Okay. In Ontario, we only have 2 sets of traffic law, which is not really the case in a lot of countries, especially European countries. But 2 sets, one for vehicles, one for pedestrians, and bikes fall under the vehicle one. So I just distracted myself by this technical stuff. So anyways, that there are like some recommendations. One is like to keep 1 meter buffer space, basically 1 meter buffer space when you're riding on your right side and one on the left side. This helps you to just like be able to maneuver easier when there's like a pothole. You don't want to hit the curb, or if the car is closing to you, you just want to have space. And also like when you're passing by parked cars, whether they're on the left or right, it helps you to not get doored, basically. Not for that means like when cars open the door and hit bikes, which happens every day in Toronto. And yeah, bikes are, if there is no bike lane, bikes are required to, or whoever is on the bike is required to follow the rules that applies to cars and vehicles. And that also gives you the right to be in the middle of the lane and take over the lane if you don't feel safe, if you feel like cars are trying to come in and squish in on the lane and are too close to you. It's your right to take over. If there is only one lane and there's construction, you can take over, and that's your right. And a lot of people feel safer to be in the middle. I personally do, than like closer to the side, because you don't want to be squished to curb, or you don't want to allow them, give them the idea of like even squishing it. Next slide. We talk about sidewalks. So basically, based on what we just talked about, bikes are not allowed to be on sidewalks unless they are kids under the age of 14. And there's like 30% of accident that happens because of bikes being on sidewalk, riding on sidewalks, because you're so fast. It's not predictable. So one of the most important things we always talk about is predictability when you're on a bike or anything else. And people, cars, pedestrians do not expect something that fast on the sidewalk. And that is the issue that we see with bikes on the sidewalk, and also these electric kick scooters. Cars coming out of the driveway, not seeing anyone, any pedestrians, and based on, they do the math in their head automatically, they don't expect anything that fast, and there are a lot of accidents that happen like that, or also on crosswalks. So recommendation is always get off your bike when you are crossing on the zebra crosswalks, which is also what we have here. And yeah, if you're going there, just like go on the side, do not go on the crosswalk if there's a bike lane beside it. And next slide.
Oh, Ryan had a question about left turn. That slide's coming up, Ryan.
Yeah, we do have that coming up. And again, talking about pedestrians, they do have the right of way. Again, we are following the rules for that applies to vehicles, so they do have the right of the way. If you're turning right, watching for pedestrians and everything else that we all know, and it makes sense. They're more vulnerable and they're also slower. And going to the next slide. So these are the fines that we're talking about. These are the ones that are for drivers if they are not being careful around bikes. I think I skipped one slide. Yes, I'm sure I did. So this is the ones that are for cyclists, and then we'll go to drivers. For cyclists, there's just, you cannot have 2 people on a bike. So that's one of the laws in Ontario. So if there is more than 1 person, there's 85. Displaying the stop sign is 85. So there's the whole concept of, what's the name of it, Rick? Idaho stop, that for stop signs, a lot of people are trying to advocate for bikes if there is no one, and bikes are slow and there's like they're not that dangerous for pedestrians. So people are talking about Idaho stop, which is not necessarily if there is no cars or pedestrians at the intersection with a stop sign, not requiring full stop, and pedestrians can, cyclists can stop without putting their foot down, which is the definition of full stop, and then continue. But it's not the law. So if someone wants to ticket you for not stopping fully, they can. And yeah, the signals are important. We're going to talk about them, but these are the fines for all of these. Going the one way. And the next slide is about for drivers, but related to cyclists or being around bikes. Not only they're paying, there are negative points for it too. So I think it's clear. If there's any questions I can talk about.
There's 3 questions in the chat.
Oh, I don't see them yet.
I can take those. Sophia asked about riding on the sidewalk. Sidewalk legislation is a municipal legislation, so it's not universal across Ontario. Some municipalities, it's I think it's like 12-inch sized wheels or under are allowed on the sidewalks, but in Toronto, it's a matter of age. If I ever have to ride on the sidewalk, which occasionally I'll do when I'm parking or some places where it's impractical to be on the road, I will ride at the same speed as people are walking, and I'm always ringing my bell or telling people, and they definitely have the right of way. So if you ever do have to ride on the sidewalk for safety reasons, be very cognizant that pedestrians have the right of way and don't like you being there, and et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes it's necessary. Matt had a question about in Toronto right now, we have for part of Vision Zero, you'll get a green light for pedestrians to go before the green light happens for the cars. That's to get pedestrians out on the road and visible, so they're not being run over by people doing quick right turns or things like that when all the lights all turn green at the same time. Technically, it is illegal for a cyclist to be going on the pedestrian signal. You're supposed to be following the car signal, but generally, I've never heard of anyone being ticketed for that. Although, if you are, it is said that if you're a visible minority, you may get ticketed more quickly than other people. So if they're looking for someone to ticket, technically, yeah, you should be following the automobile signal. But as far as being safe, sometimes it is safer to go when the pedestrian signal goes. But yeah, it is technically illegal. Are cyclists supposed to stop at all stop signs? I usually just look around. That's an excellent comment, because if you ever watch at a stop sign, very rarely cars come to a full stop either. Most cars come to an almost full stop and then boot through the intersection. And so the Idaho stop, which we're advocating for cyclists, the idea about a lot of stop signs on smaller residential streets are to slow down and calm traffic. And on a bicycle, you're already calmed traffic. So the concept of the Idaho stop is, like most people are doing, slow down, look, be able to stop if there's any traffic, but if there's nothing around, you roll through the intersection. Technically, that's illegal. Same thing with a car. If a car, you come to a stop sign and you don't make a complete stop, technically that is illegal. But it's kind of one of those areas of the law which is technically illegal, but a lot of people still do it. I think that covers the questions that are appearing there right now.
Just adding one thing to that, like, I don't know, like in my tone, it might be like sound like I'm just like telling you what to do, but that's not why we're here. We're not telling anyone what to do. Just like basically telling you what the law is. But sometimes it doesn't even match what is safer and what people feel more safer to do. So these are the laws. We also talk about what is the safest in different situations, but at the end of the day, it comes to your judgment. and at the moment to see what feels safe for you. And like the example that Rick gave, like about like riding on the sidewalk, sometimes there's just like, yeah, going down Keele in Toronto, I would never ride there, and I'll go on the sidewalk, and it's usually a quiet one. So
Yeah.
just wanted
And
to mention that, and I'm gonna let you do the next one, Rick, too, because you're a pro when it comes to e-bike rules. Well, understand it.
But yeah, the big one on stop signs, though, to note is that blowing a red light is like, I've heard of it with court costs being a $360 fine. So, if you are going to go roll through stop signs, that's like $100. But big one, definitely don't go through red lights. That one I've heard of people getting done for.
Yeah.
So be careful about that. Okay, go to e-bikes.
And the stop
E-bikes,
sign, you can always argue it, but not the red light. That's right.
yeah. More and more people are riding e-bikes nowadays. It's especially if you're we're talking up in York Region, a lot of bigger roads, a lot of longer distances than if people are downtown. And so e-bikes, it's become more and more common. E-bike legislation, however, is in kind of a gray area. E-bikes are, I believe they're legislated by province, not by federal, which is kind of a problem because a lot of them are being brought in from Asia. And the regulations differ from area to area, which makes it a really confusing thing. But in Ontario, to be qualified as an e-bike, you need to weigh less than 120 kilograms. The rider should be over 16 years old. You're supposed to be wearing a bicycle or a motorcycle helmet. There should be 2 sets of brakes. It should stop in 9 meters if you're going 30 kilometers an hour. It should be maximum 500 watts, and you are limited to 32 kilometers an hour, and there must be actively working pedals. So if you have a look at a lot of e-bikes that are being used, a lot of them don't actually satisfy those requirements. If there are no actively working pedals, it actually is legislated as a motor vehicle, and you're supposed to have insurance and be registered with a driver's with a license on it. So anyway, that's the rule of the law. I mean, I was riding on the Humber Bike Trail the other day, and 2 gas-powered dirt bikes passed me. So all of that stuff is illegal. So go back to that slide, Noma. Can you get that one up again? What?
I was kicked out on my computer. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share the slides again. Sorry.
Okay, on that slide, it's showing what kind of bike you have and what kind of infrastructure you're allowed to be on. So if you are on a electric assisted bike, there are a lot of, say, trails and stuff that you're not supposed to be on. I mean, there are certain trails that even a bicycle's not supposed to be on. So be conscious of the legal requirements on those. If you're a lot of times, sometimes it'll be signed, but other times it won't be a sign on it. But so be aware of those. Generally, if you are on an e-assist bike with pedals, you're allowed to be in cycle tracks where there is a divider between you and the rest of the road. Otherwise, you're always allowed in the ones with painted bike lane. But if you're one of the ones which doesn't have pedals and is a heavier bike, you should be staying off of the ones where there's a barrier, a divider. I have the presentation on I can pull it up and see if I can share.
No, I just need to be a host. I didn't want to jump in, but Jesse, if you can make me a host again, please.
Yeah, we'll go do that.
Thank you so much.
You should have
Awesome,
access
I got
now.
it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Toronto.ca, if you go on there and there is a link on that website to a thing called Cycling and the Law. So Toronto.ca /cycling and cycling in Toronto, I think it's called. But just put in Toronto.ca and hit the search bar and say cycling. there's a whole page there on cycling related legislation within from this municipality. It's a really good site to have a look at. So yeah, this one here shows like nobody's allowed on the sidewalk. If you've got the first two kinds of bikes, you're allowed on multi-use trails and paths and protected cycle tracks. That means ones with a barrier. If you are one with a electric scooter, you're allowed on those and painted bike lanes. By the way, electric kick scooters, which are not legal within, they're legislated. They're only allowed on private property. You see them all the time in Toronto streets, but technically those are not legislated under the Highway Traffic Act. So other things that you can do on riding on the road is there's certain etiquette, like as an example here in a bike lane. If you're a slow person, does it make sense to boot to the front and then everybody has to pass you again? Obviously not. So anyway, next slide. So what Noma was talking about there is the 1 meter passing rule. So in general, try to keep 1 meter, which is extended arm, sticking your arm out, having at least that much space between you and parked cars or the curb. It makes you more visible to people on the road, and you can also see farther, and it prevents you from getting bored, makes you more predictable. Okay, next. Hand signals. A lot of people don't use hand signals, and technically, you legally are supposed to be doing hand signals. When you're riding around other cars or other people, it makes things a lot more safe if people know where you're going. There's 2 legal right-hand turn signals. The one which is shown at the left of the picture, that's derived from cars because people can't see if you stick out your right hand and you're in a car, they can't see what you're doing. But I find just pointing in the direction you're going to go is a lot of times easier for people to understand, and it's foolproof. Even sometimes if somebody's waiting for me and they're making a left-hand turn and I'm approaching, I will point, I'm going straight so that they know I'm going in that direction. So I'll even, add a third signal into that mix. But anyway, signaling is really important. Again, when you're doing a lane change or you are, make sure you do a little check over your shoulder before you negotiate that move. Sometimes if you're making a right-hand turn, somebody will try to pass you on the inside while you're making that turn, or on the left side, sometimes somebody's going to try to pass you. So sticking your arm out actually prevents the person from trying to pass you at that time. So that is kind of helpful. Next. Somebody was asking a question about the proper way to make a left-hand turn. So there's 2 recommended ways of making a left-hand turn. One of them is called the vehicular left, or the one's the 2-stage left and one's the 1-stage left. So you can turn left the same way as a car turns left. Go to the left side of the lane, stick out your arm, and make the turn. A lot of times, if I'm doing that, I will try to actually stay on a little bit to the right side of the box, because if you have somebody who's aggressive, they may try to pass you while you're making that turn. There's also like really unsafe thing to do if you're a car driver, but sometimes that happens. The other way of doing it, if you feel unsafe or it's a larger road, is to ride straight across the road and pause at the other side, wait for the light to change, and then proceed in that other direction. So there's kind of 2 ways of making that, depending on the traffic conditions and the nature of the intersections. Are e-scooters legal on the sidewalk in New York? No, e-scooters are not legislated within the Highway Traffic Act. It's a municipal decision. So in some municipalities, you'll see companies like Bird have legalized, instead of bike share, they have scooter share. But in Toronto is waiting on that in order whether to legalize scooters. New York itself, I'm not positive, but I would think they're not legal certainly not on the sidewalk. So this slide is about right turns versus going straight through. If you are going straight through an intersection, we call it destination positioning. So where you are at the light should be where you're going to end up on the other side of the road. So number 3 there, that person's going straight through. Don't go into the right-hand turn lane. Only go in the right-hand turn lane if you are going to make a right-hand turn. So number 3 there, that person's going straight through. It's clear to everybody you're going straight through the intersection. Cyclist number 5 is signaling and waiting behind the turning car. Cyclist number 4 is in big danger of getting what's called a right hook. Generally, the person who is driving the car will be most worried about a vehicle coming from their left-hand side and T-boning them. So they're usually not looking for anything dangerous coming off their back right blind spot. They will generally not know that you're there, and that is a very dangerous spot to try to pass a car which is making a right-hand turn on the inside side. I know of various cyclists who have been hit that way. It's a really dangerous spot to be in with a car, and a super dangerous spot to be in if it's a larger vehicle. I know someone. Well, I know of a case where someone was completely run over doing that. You've got to stay out of that space. Oh, good. There's a comment there about e-scooters not legal sidewalks York region, maybe on multi-use trails path. Anyway, you can read that in the chart. Passing. Always pass someone on the left and never pass somebody on the right-hand side. It's really not safe passing somebody on the inside. If that person on the left-hand side has a dangerous situation, your instinct is to immediately go to the right, get out of the way, and they'll run you right off the road. It's really impolite and not a safe thing to be passing people on the right-hand side. You should always, as Noah talked about, communicate and be predictable. So if you are passing anybody, ring your bell, yell out, passing on your left, and make sure they've heard you, because a lot of people, especially if you're riding all weather and they've got earphones on or headgear on, they might not hear you. So I've had that cases where you rung your bell and you're yelling, passing on the left, and the person then jogs into your path. But so yeah, be cautious passing other cyclists. It's really important, especially when you're riding around in more crowded areas. On this one here, it just talks about some basic courtesies, like not wearing earbuds when you are cycling. You really need to keep your ears open, listening for cars. There's a lot more electric vehicles around now. They make less noise than gas-powered vehicles. So you really got to be on your game to hear what's around you. The thing about doing track standing, I don't find that actually a big problem, but I mean, being predictable so people know, is this person going to go or not? That is super useful. And weaving in and out around cars, like with the 1 meter rule about trying to stay, ride in a predictable straight line. Cars can figure that out because cars all drive in predictable straight lines. They're not wheeling in and out among the traffic, and that generally puts you more at risk when you. And then riding with others. So as you are a legal vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act, you are allowed to take up space. You're not allowed to deliberately block people, vehicles. That's obstructing traffic. But if it is practicable, if it's for safety reasons, you are allowed to block the lane, take up space, ride side by side. That is all legal if there's a rationale for doing it, other than just simply trying to block the road. A lot of, especially if you're riding with kids, riding a single file is often good and safe. And you put, a responsible person at the front and another one at the back, and keep an eye on the back. And again, ride in straight lines. A lot of people can. Most motor vehicles can figure that out. Sharing road space, next. Oh, go back one. Sharing road space. In sharing road space, that's showing a painted bicycle logo on the road. If you're riding out in York, there's a lot of places where there's called sharrows on the road, i.e. it's not an actual bike lane, but it's a bike symbol on the road with an arrow. That's really useful for negotiating bicycle routes. But again, it's you're sharing space with cars. In a painted bike lane, vehicles, unless they're municipal vehicles doing work or somebody's dropping off a handicapped person or an emergency vehicle, other vehicles are not allowed to be parked in there. So it's a fine for that. But that's what sharing road speed. This is specifically TTC, but also if you're taking GO Train, you can extend your reach of your ride by doing multimodal, putting your vehicle onto either TTC or GO Train. GO Train has specific cars that you're allowed to put your bike onto. I've used it quite frequently. It's a great service. Be aware that anywhere you're riding where there are streetcar tracks, and a large number of injuries in Toronto for cyclists come because of the streetcar tracks. So if you're going to ride in Toronto where there are streetcar tracks, it might be a good idea to go out on a quiet day and practice riding over. Obviously, the safest way to cross a streetcar track is at 90 degrees to the streetcar track, but sometimes that's not practical. There's certain intersections like Queen and Spadina. If you're a new cyclist, it may be better for you to get off and walk across that intersection, especially if you're trying to make a turn. It's quite dangerous trying to make a left-hand turn in the middle of traffic with 4 lanes going each way, and it's full of streetcar tracks. That's a dangerous situation. The other thing, anything steel like a manhole cover can also be, especially when they're wet, they can be really slippery as well. So be very careful around those items. Those are danger spots. How are we doing on time? Next.
Okay, we'll need to unfortunately, we're going to need to wrap it up here. So
There's just one.
how many more slides do we have?
2 more slides left.
Okay.
Again, trucks and large vehicles, full of blind spots. Stay away. Next. Things to do in a collision. A lot of times people are in shock. Get witnesses, take it seriously, take photos. Police will come with any bicycle collision. You can call the police. Next. And route planning, generally plan out your route. And there's a whole pile of resources. Go to the next resource page.
I'm just going to drop them in the chat.
Yeah. Drop these onto the chat, and you can take a look at these. They will make your ride safer, looking at those. Drop that in the chat, and then drop the next one in the chat as well. Sorry we went over, but it's good to actually investigate those questions and have questions. Stuff. On the next one, there are, I know there's a link to, there's a cycle map for some stuff in the York region. I know Markham has a cycle map, and again, for route planning, there's a lot of nice trails to ride on, and sometimes you can actually use those for you as part of your that doesn't really apply so much for the York region. But yeah.
Okay, here it is. A bit slow because I'm going between different browsers, but the next one's coming in a second.
But also, if y'all out there are watching, yeah, go online and just take a look. Markham does have a cycle map. Richmond has a cycle map. There are specific stuff on GO Train and TTC that talk about taking your into there, and it extends your commute. It gives you access to web places. And Cycle Toronto has a resource page too, cycletoronto.ca/resources. So you can take a look. There's a bunch of them.
There are like videos on YouTube too. You can check. Cycle Toronto's YouTube. Right. Thanks, Rick. Jesse, passing it
Okay.
on to you.
Perfect. Awesome. Let's give a round of applause to both Rick and Noma. So the React's going. Thank you so much for both of you for all of your insights. It was definitely very informative, as always. So let's just quickly, I know we're running a little bit past beyond the time. I'm going to blow through this. So basically, this is June is Bike Month. We still have a bunch of more webinars. So we still have one more from Cycle Toronto later in this week or later in the month for bike maintenance. But we also have other really amazing folks. So the Toronto Metropolitan University, Wells Institute, people that will be talking about cycling infrastructure and other research topics that could be interesting from that perspective. So definitely go to our website, sparkme.ca, to register for those webinars. They do happen around this lunchtime of 12 to 1. And as well, if you go on sparkme.ca, go out, go bike, and log your trips on the SparkMe app for a chance to win a $50 gift card prize, depending on which municipality or region you're part of. And so, as I promised before, in the beginning, we will choose one winner from this webinar today to get a prize, $20 gift card prize. So I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel, and hopefully the winner here is still hanging out with us. Okay, we got Yang Zhang, so congrats to Yang for that. And thank you all so much for attending. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you all in the next webinars.
Thank you, Jesse.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ride safe.